Hello and welcome to this comparison video of some simple modded Matias switches. At the moment, Matias mainly markets two types of switches, a clicky switch and a dampened tactile switch, which they refer to as a quiet click switch, but that's a bit of a misnomer because it's not clicky, it's tactile. And to me, the two switches immediately beg the question, what happens when you take a clicky switch but substitute in a tactile leaf? And what happens when you take a dampened tactile switch and substitute in a clicky leaf? And that's exactly what I've done here. So on the left, I've got a commercially available Matias click switch, and on the right is a commercially available Matias dampened tactile switch. And then here I've taken a dampened tactile switch but substituted in a clicky leaf. And here I've taken a clicky switch but substituted in a tactile leaf. So the two give you respectively a quiet click switch and a tactile switch. And first we'll start with a simple sound comparison of the four. So what did we learn from this? Well, it should be pretty easy to notice that the non-damped switches, so the clicky switch and the tactile switch, sound very rattly. Whereas the dampened switches sound a little bit more elegant in that regard. You can't really hear the plastic all that well. The quiet click switch is also substantially more silent than the tactile switch, presumably as a result of that. It's just the rattling of the switch really that makes all the noise. The quiet click switch is interesting because the clicky noise is not all that loud. So if you want a keyboard that still gives you oral feedback, but you don't want a really loud one like the actual clicky switch, which can make a lot of noise, then maybe that's a good compromise, say for instance for an open office or something. And the key feel is also a little bit different. The quiet switches, because of the dampening effect, feel a little bit closer to rubber domes, or at least they don't bottom out as harshly as the others do, and in a way that makes them feel a little bit more elegant. So I quite like that. Then if we look at the leaves, which you should be able to see through the switch, the left two leaves have got a clicky switch and the right two leaves are tactile leaves. And that kind of impacts the key feel a little bit because the way that the tactility and the clickiness works means that the tactile switches, these two, are not as tactile as the clicky switches are. And this is because the clicky leaves are permitted to travel more than the tactile leaves are. The tactile leaves are not clicky because they're retained in place, whereas the clicky ones are pulled down further. And that makes these two much more tactile than these two. So this one's really quite tactile. And this one's a bit more spongy. This one feels a little bit more like a cherry switch, in fact. I'd say maybe a bit more like a Cherry MX Clear switch or something, whereas this feels quite different. So that's some general observations regarding modded Matias switches. As far as which ones I like best, it's a hard choice. If you like really tactile switches, then the clicky switch is probably the best because that simply has the most tactility. The tactile switch is not the greatest combination I've found. It's still very rattly and hollow. The sound is not that great, and the tactile feeling is not that strong because it's got a tactile leaf in it rather than a clicky leaf. The quiet tactile switch feels nice. It doesn't bottom out very hard, and the sound is somewhat pleasant. It's soft, so you can use it in an open offer, so I'm sure people wouldn't mind too much. So that's kind of a nice one. The quiet click switch is, I don't know, it might be my favorite. It's got nice sound, but not too loud, so your colleagues might be okay with that. And it's still tactile because of the click leaf, but it doesn't bottom out quite as hard as the other switches do. So the damping effect is quite nice on this one. I'd say try some of these out for yourself. There are interesting combinations out there, and Matias have started marketing a linear switch as well, which should be interesting too. Who knows, maybe one day I'll do a linear modding version of this video at some point. For the moment, that's all, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you later.